Hearts of Iron 4 is many things. It's an excellent strategy game, a great World War II simulator, and of course a fantastic sandbox for alternate history shenanigans. But there are a couple of things it's not. It's not a deep political simulator, it's not a narrative-driven experience, and it is certainly not a visual novel. That is, until one mod changed everything. If you're familiar with the Hearts of Iron 4 modding scene, you probably already know what I'm talking about. That's right, the New Order, otherwise shortened to TNO. Not only is it one of the best Hearts of Iron 4 mods ever made, but it is also unique in how it transforms a war game into an interactive, choice-driven visual novel, where politics and storytelling take center stage, not war. But before we get into that, make sure to like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. But let's get into the background of what TNO is all about. It is a very dark mod that takes place in a world where the Axis won World War II, rather dominantly. Germany developed nukes and dropped them on the US, Britain and Russia fell, Japan occupies Hawaii and the ports of San Francisco and LA, America is the last bastion of freedom, and the mod starts in 1962, over 20 years after the war started. The world is in a very dark and different place, but some things are still the same. America's current president is Nixon, with his vice president JFK. America is no longer a duopoly between the Republicans and the Democrats. Due to the defeat they faced, they were forced to create a coalition because a new political party is on the rise. The NPP, or the National Progressive Pact, is a coalition between multiple smaller parties like the Communist Party, the Progressive Party, the Nationalist Party, and many, many more. It is a big tent party made up of many different ideologies, all united in their opposition to the current political establishment. In real life, 1960s America was facing a lot of strife and turmoil. In this game, there is even more. I'll actually quote the game here to describe America's situation. America was once a nation of indomitable will, a nation so bountiful and spirited that its optimism seemed unconquerable. That was ended by the atomic bombing of Pearl Harbor. Now, across each and every one of these United States, the country is mired in a malice, with only a dim light at the end of the tunnel. The land of opportunity and idealism has been overcome by poverty and strife. It is a pit that may not be surmounted easily, and only time will tell if the patriotic fire that once burned in America's heart shall return, or if it will be extinguished. Europe is also having an equally terrible time. Actually, not equal. It is doing a lot worse. Even amongst the victorious nations of Germany and Italy. Germany's political system and economy is failing. I mean, who knew fascism and cult of personality don't work out in the long run? Germany is the crumbling heart of a dystopian world order. Having won World War II, the Third Reich dominates Europe. But victory has only led to stagnation, corruption, and inevitable collapse. Hitler, old and deteriorating, remains a reclusive figure, leaving the nation paralyzed by political infighting and economic decline. Germany's vast empire is held together by force and duct tape, but cracks are everywhere. The war in Russia drags on in an endless insurgency, bleeding the nation dry. Its economy, built on conquest, is now falling under mismanagement and unsustainable policies like mass enslavement. The SS, military, and civilian government all feud for power. Russia no longer exists. After the fall of the Soviet Union and Germany occupying all the fertile territory, they let it burn. Russia is split between anarchy and warlords, all with a different vision for what a united Russia should look like. But of course, it's hard to organize when Germany continues to bomb Russia daily in terror raids that cost lives, infrastructure, and industry. Italy is the leader of the Triumvirate, a faction made up of Spain, Turkey, and of course, Italy. After the end of the war, Germany and Italy fell out with each other. Mussolini died a while ago, and now Italy faces multiple problems. An unruly subjugated population, a vast colonial empire they can't control, and people at home clamoring for change. What type of change they want is different for everyone, but change is needed. England is currently a shadow of its former self. The once mighty British Empire has been reduced to a German puppet state known now as the Kingdom of England, ruled by the authoritarian and deeply unpopular King Edward and his fascist collaborator government. With the British Isles under German occupation, the country is plagued by economic stagnation, political oppression, and growing unrest among its people. In the Far East, Japan is a crumbling empire, desperately trying to hold on to its dominance. Having emerged victorious in World War II alongside Germany, the Empire of Japan now rules a vast, overstretched domain spanning China, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific. But beneath the surface, Japan is rotting. Its economy is faltering, its military is overextended, and its colonies are restless. They also have to deal with American meddling, attempting to reclaim their lost lands in the Philippines and supplying every rebel group who opposes them. So, for the short version, shit is fucked up. Nobody is having a good time, some are having worse times than others. So with the world in absolute chaos, you'd expect the gameplay to be the usual Hearts of Iron 4 fare. Focusing on war and encirclements and microwing, go ahead and deploy some Space Marine divisions, I think you're going to work it out. But the New Order flips that on its head. Instead of waging wars, most of your time is spent navigating political turmoil and managing internal crises, and making choices that define the future of your country. This mod actually takes nukes seriously, and an all-out war between superpowers results in nuclear Armageddon. Nobody wins, and it's a game over. All wars you fight in this game will be proxy wars or civil wars depending on the country. So that's why I call this mod a visual novel. Well, because it's all about choices, which political path to go down, which candidate to support, how to handle crises. I'll go through just a few examples in-game to illustrate this. In America, there is a lot of potential presidents, all with a lot of different paths and sub-paths within them. They even have a unique election mechanic, where every 2 years you have to campaign for either the Republican Democrat coalition or the National Progressive Pact. But of course, there's more than just pressing a decision button that makes you campaign for them. They have a unique election map where you get to choose which region you're focusing your campaigns on, and then of course, depending on RNG, that campaign either goes bad or good, or maybe it's middling. They also have a cool new UI for it and a completely working electoral map for presidential campaigns. That's right, when you want your candidate to win, they don't just automatically win because you went down that focus tree path. A lot of other factors affect how the current president is viewed and how your candidate is viewed. If your current president is doing really good and the economy is great, then he is probably going to win. If your current president is doing really bad, not getting bills passed, the economy's failing, they've lost a lot of proxy wars, then they're probably going to lose. Now, during Nixon's presidency at the start of the game, you're going to have to choose between signing the Civil Rights Act or vetoing it. This will have major consequences as it affects which political candidates will be available to run for president. Because of course, that radicalizes either side and incites different sort of reactionary responses to it. So let's assume that you do sign it. That leads the way for a presidential candidate by the name of George Wallace to run and maybe win the presidency. Now, if you don't know who he is or that name sounds familiar, in our timeline, he was the last openly segregationist candidate to run for the presidency. In-game, he is much the same. He wants to repeal the Civil Rights Act and bring back segregation. In real life, he has this great quote. It's not great, but it certainly speaks to what he thinks should be done. And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever. He also wants an overhaul on the welfare system in America, and it's up to you to guide his decisions. Do you want segregation to be up to the states, or do you want it to be federal policy? When drawing up new plans for Social Security, do you want to make it to where only white people are eligible for it, or have it be available for everyone regardless of skin color? And of course, all of his decisions echo throughout the game. His successors are going to have to pick up the pieces of what he's left, or continue down his path. One of the best storylines / paths in game, in my opinion, is Germany's reform path. After Hitler dies in game, a civil war happens, and you get to decide who to support. Albert Speer, in real life, was a close friend of Hitler and an architect. He was also the Minister of Armaments for Germany during World War II. In game, he takes on the path of a reformer, who wants to reform Germany from an authoritarian dictatorship into a less authoritarian technocracy, without slavery or military control over the government. You have a lot of choices to make. Do you want to purge political opponents? Do you want your reforms to be fast and rapid, or do you want more gradual, slow reform? but you have to be careful because your government can collapse. Push too hard against the established order and the whole house of cards will fall. And there are multiple branching outcomes for how well you do. You can fully succeed and miraculously reform Germany into a still authoritarian but much more humane technocratic state without slavery, or some of the more evil excesses of Nazi Germany, or fail and have the military and SS coup him, leading Germany back into darkness. Every decision shapes the fate of Germany, with dialogue and event chains making it feel like an intense political drama, rather than just a war game. That's also another thing I haven't mentioned too much, all the writing and events. This game actually has narratives. When you play as Albert Speer, there's events where he's thinking by himself or talking to subordinates, and you actually get to see his thought process and how he thinks. You get to feel how unsure of himself he is. He's the leader of a nest of vipers, and he always feels like every choice he makes could be his last. Or when you play as Nixon, his paranoia shines through. When he talks, he constantly feels backstabbed or like everyone is out to get him. When he signs the Civil Rights Act and the press and party congratulate JFK as the Democrat as part of his cabinet for getting it done, he feels betrayed by JFK and the media for not giving him his flowers. And there are even other characters' stories you get to see. When you play as England, you get the perspective of two girls who fall in love and eventually sign up for the resistance to fight against tyranny. You get to see them meet and fall in love and fight. You get the perspective of the dirty American, a black ops soldier who does the dirty work for the American government, and you get to see how he sees things on the ground. This game does a great job of making the world feel alive by showing the lives of the people your choices affect. It's honestly one of the best parts of this game, that you honestly get to experience how the people are feeling. And then when you play the really evil paths, you get to see into the heart of darkness. You get to see how people think, how people feel, how it affects everybody in your nation. Most visual novels let you pick between romance routes. TNO lets you pick between stabilizing a collapsing empire or descending into totalitarian madness. The stakes are just a bit higher. There's also just so many unique mechanics baked into the game. The UI has been completely overhauled and it now has a black, dark look to it that feels really dystopian. There's a fully functional economy that affects the game and story, with inflation and debt to GDP ratio, and the budget for the military and social programs baked into it. There's also a power block system where you get to see the power blocks of every nation in the world, and it has a score that is compared against every other power block in the game. Even the proxy wars you play as have real ramifications in-game. When you lose a proxy war, your citizens feel like their sons died for nothing, and it causes you support in the next election. At the end of the day, the New Order isn't just a mod, it's a completely different way to experience Hearts of Iron 4. I know a lot of people don't like that about the New Order, but that's what a lot of people love. So if you're expecting regular Hearts of Iron 4 stuff with just a new skin slapped onto it, that is not what this is. I think this mod proves that grand strategy games can be just as compelling as the best visual novels. And honestly, I think this does it a lot better than a lot of visual novels I've ever played. That's all I got. Thank you for sticking around, watching. Please do like and subscribe. That's all I got, so please remember that Jesus loves you.